The people who were publishing it, they had very little insight. They were mostly text scholars. That is, they were good at translating text, good at, finding the right word, arranging, the materials in a certain way. But they had little or no historical insight and little or no intellectual insight into the meaning of the documents. All they saw, and here was the key, for them, they dealt with paleography, the way the handwriting was. That shows where their minds were. And the paleography to them, according to their carbon testing or other things, read 2nd to 1st century BC. When in fact, if you look at the material in the scrolls, it's clearly 1st century AD. And they're against a high priesthood. In other words, in their view, you would have to be against the Maccabean high priesthood when they have the same ideas of the Maccabean high priest, same zealotry, same everything. No, absolutely not. And that's what I show in all my books, that you have to go by the internal data to make a determination, and the carbon testing isn't precise enough for that period back then to make any determination 2nd, 1st century or whatever. The margin of error is far too great. So the only thing they were going on is their understanding of paleography. And that was very, preordained. So when you go by what's in the scrolls, then a whole new world opens up. And that's what I was working on and what I've done in all my books. And that's why the scrolls had to be out there for everyone to judge for themselves, because they sent things out with their interpretations attached. They didn't just send the documents out, they sent it out, and I'm talking about they, a small group of scholars. I don't want to name them, but everyone knows who they are. About 20 or 30 scholars at the most connected to the École Biblique and some other institutions, and they sent everything out with an interpretation, and the interpretation was invariably wrong. Well, your viewers should look at the scrolls. They're not so difficult to read. There are not that many that are in full manuscript copy. Most of them are bits and pieces. You've got about 20 or 30 documents that you can really, get some meaning out of. So you're not dealing with, there may be, 1,500 different documents in the scrolls or more. But maybe, as I said, you've got about 20 or 30 that are good enough preserved that you can understand something. And here's the thing. Way back in, at some point, the Damascus document, as we call it, went to Egypt at some point. Somehow it got to Egypt. And from Egypt, one of the famous British scholars in the 19th century found it in one of the synagogue archives that existed still in the Jewish community. The Jews didn't understand what this document signified, but it was a full copy, and it went to the Cambridge University Library. And it was named there the Damascus document because in the 6th column it refers to raising the new covenant in the land of Damascus. And so that document is complete, plus some of the commentaries on different biblical passages like the Habakkuk Pesher, which takes the first 2 chapters of the prophet Habakkuk and has their own self-styled interpretation of this, which refers to contemporary events in their own time. And there's another one on Nahum. There's a Psalms commentary. And the most important thing, which is in fairly good shape, not complete, but fairly good, is a document that has since been called the War Scroll. It is called, because they name it because of one of the apocalyptic important sections, the War of the Sons of Light against the Sons of Darkness. And this war, as it mounts up through this, it describes this war in great detail. They have great imagination. This war, as it works up through their document in their minds, involves, some of the contemporary people. So we're in a revolutionary environment and a revolutionary, I don't like to call them a sect, revolutionary movement. And it's going to be led by the Messiah. And the angels of heaven are going to be the battle carriers. In other words, they know that they're too small, maybe 1,500, 2,000 people, who knows how many people were part of this movement or whatever. they can't fight the whole might of the Roman Empire. But with the heavenly host and the Messiah, and they believed in these things in some, very, admirable way, but it is really very imaginative. The holy angels were going to join their camps in this document. Now, no one has picked up on this document how important that aspect is. I've shown how important that aspect is, because the reason they have to be perfectly righteous, so this is now a movement of righteousness, and they're called the sons of Zadok, Z-A-D-O-K, which is also a priestly movement, but it can also be the sons of Zedek, and they sometimes call themselves that, Z-E-D-E-K, righteousness, and the leader is often the righteous teacher or the teacher of righteousness. So righteousness permeates the whole idea of the movement. So what's happening is the way this righteousness-oriented movement is going to break the power of the whole Roman Empire is with the help of the angels in heaven or the heavenly hosts. Now, they are very imaginative, and they are really, going to be disappointed, obviously, but they really feel if they're perfectly righteous, the heavenly angels will join their camps, and the war scroll literally delineates this process. So you have the righteousness doctrine throughout the Damascus document, and then you have the sons of righteousness, or the people who are caring about righteousness, or the righteous teacher, etc., preparing for this final war. Now, people think, the scrolls are just an early version of Christianity. No, they're not, because they're not peaceful. They're not the least bit peaceful. Anyone who sees them shows that they're just like the Maccabeans. No, they're not anti-Maccabean. They're anti-Herodian, and that's what people missed in the early interpretations because of their bad dating. They hated the Roman Empire. They hated the priests appointed by the Roman Empire. They hated Herod, who was appointed by the Roman Empire, and they wanted to get rid of these people and institute their own priesthood, sons of Zadok, sons of righteousness, and they went out into the wilderness. John the Baptist was clearly probably associated with this group. They went out into the wilderness to prepare the way of the Lord. And that's the group we have. And they're not just at Qumran, which is the place we call near the Dead Sea where we found the scrolls. They believe that in the war scroll there are desert camps, and also in the Damascus document. They have multiple desert camps, and in the Damascus document, we will raise, the new covenant in the land of Damascus. So there were desert camps to be sprinkled all across northern Syria into northern Iraq, as we have now. What is going on now? That's always been a revolutionary movement. Well, the war we know failed, and everyone committed suicide on Masada. And people don't realize that the people that committed suicide on Masada were not just zealots or Sicarii, as Josephus insultingly calls them. They were part of this movement because scrolls were found up there. And rather than be taken prisoner, they all committed suicide. And so this movement collapsed on Masada. Masada was not different, and these were Sicarii. It's Hippolytus, an early church historian, who calls 4 groups of Essenes. We always think of peaceful Essenes. No, Hippolytus says there were 4 groups of Essenes, and the 2 last ones were Zealot Essenes and Sicarii Essenes. The real revolutionary movement in Palestine, and as Hippolytus, Roman historian and theologian, said, the 2 important groups of Essenes were not the Josephus Essenes that we all hear about, but were the Sicarii and Zealot Essenes. And he gives their beliefs, and so on. I have it in my book here. And this is someone who knew the different kinds of Essenes, really. Hippolytus is very insightful. And he's 2nd century, and he's got his head to the grindstone there. And so this group is a group of Essenes, but not a pacifist Essene group that then moves into Christianity. This is a Zealot Sicarii group of Essenes. And they're not called Sicarii because they assassinated people like Josephus likes to say. I show that they're called Sicarii because of the short knives that they carried in battle, which were like the Roman Sika, but not for assassination, for doing battle. And that's why they're called that, And so that is warlike Essenes. And the problem with the establishment scholarship is, they took the Essenes as being, peaceful, turn the other cheek, Jesus-type Essenes. And that's why you have to read the documents for yourself, and you have to be ready to take the meaning regardless of what's said, and you have to have someone who can point your way to what you're looking for.